Olivia Green had built her empire from the ground up. Her company, Green Enterprises, was one of the leading names in luxury real estate, and she was known for her sharp intellect and unyielding ambition. But behind her strong public image lay a woman who had sacrificed much for success. She had no family to speak of, no close friends she could confide in, and certainly no one to share her life with. Every day, she walked through the sprawling halls of her estate, alone, surrounded by luxury but haunted by a profound emptiness. Her life took a turn when Daniel Lawson, a former military man turned bodyguard, was assigned to protect her after a series of threats from business rivals. Daniel was not the usual bodyguard. He wasn't flashy or loud like the others she had encountered. Instead, he was quiet, disciplined, and carried an air of mystery. Olivia had grown accustomed to people fawning over her, but Daniel remained distant, professional. His deep blue eyes always seemed to be watching her, not with desire, but with a sense of duty that both intrigued and frustrated her. In their first few weeks together, they exchanged few words. Daniel shadowed her silently, standing at a respectful distance during meetings, accompanying her to events, and watching her estate at night. Olivia found his presence oddly comforting. She hadn't realized how vulnerable she had felt before, how lonely her success had made her. But with Daniel nearby, she started to feel safer in a way she hadn't in years. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day at work, Olivia sat in her office, looking out at the city skyline. She had achieved everything she had ever wanted, yet the feeling of isolation only grew stronger. It was then that Daniel entered the room, standing by the door as usual, waiting for her to leave so he could ensure her safety back home. "Do you ever get tired of all this?" Olivia asked, her voice soft and weary. Daniel looked at her, surprised by the question. "Of my job?" "No, of life being so predictable," she clarified. "Always the same routine, always putting on a show for the world. Don't you ever feel like you want something more?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "I've learned to keep my expectations low. That way, I'm never disappointed." Olivia smiled sadly. "I envy that." From that moment, something shifted between them. Olivia began to talk more openly with Daniel, sharing small bits of her life, her fears, her dreams. Daniel, though still guarded, listened intently, occasionally offering brief glimpses into his own past, a childhood in a small town, his time in the military, and the scars both physical and emotional that he carried from those days. As time passed, Olivia and Daniel's connection grew stronger. They started to spend more time together outside of the professional context. At first, it was casual, small conversations in the car, shared jokes during long business trips, and late-night talks after events. Olivia found herself looking forward to these moments more than anything else in her life. Daniel became her escape from the pressures of running her company, from the public image she had to maintain. For Daniel, it was different. He admired Olivia's strength, her intelligence, and the way she commanded respect in a male-dominated world. But he also saw the vulnerability she tried so hard to hide. He felt a growing sense of responsibility not just to protect her physically, but emotionally. Yet, he knew the boundaries of his role. Olivia was his employer, a woman far above his social standing, and any personal feelings he might have for her were dangerous, not just for his job, but for both of their reputations. Their relationship took a turn one fateful night after a charity gala. Olivia had been dealing with a particularly stressful situation at work. One of her business partners had betrayed her trust, leading to financial losses and public humiliation. She had held herself together throughout the event, but once they were alone in the car, the weight of it all came crashing down. "I can't keep doing this," Olivia said, her voice trembling with frustration. "Every time I think I've got everything under control, something goes wrong. I feel like I'm constantly fighting just to keep my head above water." Daniel glanced at her, his usual stoic expression softening. "You don't have to do it alone." Olivia met his eyes, searching for something: comfort, reassurance, maybe even a sign that someone truly cared about her beyond the power and wealth she represented. In that moment, the walls she had built around herself began to crumble. Without thinking, she reached out and took Daniel's hand, the gesture simple but filled with meaning. Daniel hesitated for a moment, torn between his duty and the undeniable pull he felt toward her. But when he saw the vulnerability in her eyes, he knew he couldn't walk away. Slowly, he squeezed her hand, a silent promise that he would be there for her, no matter what. That night marked the beginning of their secret affair. It started with quiet moments stolen in the privacy of her estate, late-night conversations that turned into lingering touches, soft kisses shared in the shadows. Neither of them spoke of what their relationship meant or where it was headed. They both knew that marriage was impossible. Olivia's position in society would never allow her to be with a man like Daniel, and Daniel, for all his feelings, knew he could never provide her with the life she was used to. Their relationship remained hidden from the world, a secret they shared only with the night. Olivia, always careful about her public image, continued to play the role of the untouchable businesswoman, while Daniel maintained his position as her ever-watchful protector. But behind closed doors, their passion for each other grew. The days that followed were filled with stolen glances, fleeting touches, and whispered words, but never a public acknowledgement of the relationship that was blooming between them. For Olivia, this love affair was like nothing she had ever experienced before. She had dated powerful men, successful CEOs, and public figures who courted her for her wealth and reputation. But none of them had ever made her feel seen, not like Daniel did. With him, she felt like just Olivia, a woman who longed to be loved for who she was, not for what she represented. Daniel, too, found himself caught in a storm of emotions he had never anticipated. His duty as Olivia's guard was clear: to protect her, to ensure her safety, and to maintain a professional distance. Yet every time he looked into her eyes, he found it harder to uphold those boundaries. His feelings for her grew stronger with every passing day, and though he knew their love had no future, he couldn't bring himself to walk away. Their nights together were filled with passion, but also a lingering sadness. Olivia would often lie awake after their encounters, staring at the ceiling, wondering why life had brought them together if they were destined to remain apart. Daniel, sensing her turmoil, would silently pull her closer, offering what little comfort he could, even though he knew that no amount of closeness could fix the unspoken truth between them. They were from two different worlds. Olivia's public life continued as usual, but cracks began to form in her carefully crafted image. Her business rivals started to notice changes in her behavior. She was more distracted during meetings, less sharp in her decision-making, and there were rumors that she had become emotionally involved with someone beneath her status. Olivia's closest advisor, Sarah, had worked with her for years and began to grow concerned. She confronted Olivia one afternoon, her tone gentle but firm. "Olivia, something's been off with you lately," Sarah said. "You're not yourself. Is everything okay?" Olivia hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. Sarah was one of the few people she trusted, but even then, Olivia had kept Daniel a secret from everyone. "I'm just dealing with a lot," Olivia finally said, deflecting the question. "Business is stressful, and I've been feeling a bit overwhelmed." Sarah didn't press further, but she didn't miss the way Olivia's gaze flickered toward the window, where Daniel was standing guard outside. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was going on. As the months passed, Olivia's relationship with Daniel became more intense, but also more precarious. Every time they were together, they risked exposure. And in the world of high-stakes business, secrets were dangerous. Olivia's chief rival, Richard Caldwell, was a cunning businessman who had always resented Olivia's success. He had tried to outmaneuver her in the past, but she had always come out on top. However, lately, he had noticed a change in her. She was distracted, her focus seemed split, and rumors were swirling that her personal life was affecting her judgment. Richard decided to dig deeper, hiring private investigators to follow her every move. It wasn't long before they discovered the truth, or at least part of it. Olivia was spending an unusual amount of time with her bodyguard, Daniel. There were no obvious signs of an affair, but Richard knew how to read between the lines. He saw an opportunity to destroy her not through business tactics, but through scandal. He began leaking rumors to the press, planting stories about Olivia's inappropriate relationship with an employee. The tabloids jumped at the chance to bring down one of the most powerful women in the business world. Headlines like "Olivia Green's secret love affair with Bodyguard" and "CEO's forbidden romance threatens business empire" started popping up everywhere. Olivia tried to ignore the rumors at first, but as the media frenzy grew, it became impossible to contain. Reporters camped outside her estate, eager for any glimpse of the mysterious bodyguard who had supposedly captured her heart. Daniel, always the professional, kept his distance in public, but the strain was beginning to show. One evening, as they sat together in Olivia's study, she finally broke down. "I don't know how much longer we can do this, Daniel," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're going to find out. And when they do, it'll ruin everything." Daniel looked at her, his expression conflicted. "I know," he said quietly. "But I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay by your side until the end, no matter what happens." Olivia wanted to believe him, but deep down, she knew the truth. Their love, as beautiful as it was, could never survive the harsh reality of the world they lived in. They were living on borrowed time. The media storm reached its peak when a photograph of Olivia and Daniel together at a private event was leaked. The image wasn't scandalous in itself, but the implication was enough to set the business world on fire. Investors began pulling out of deals, her board members started questioning her judgment, and Richard Caldwell, ever the opportunist, pounced on the chaos. Olivia's entire empire was at risk, and she knew there was only one way to stop it. She had to end things with Daniel, publicly and permanently. It was the hardest decision she had ever made. That night, she met Daniel in the garden, the place where they had shared so many of their secret moments. The moonlight bathed the flowers in a soft glow, but there was no beauty in the moment. Only sadness. "I can't do this anymore," Olivia said, her voice breaking. "It's over." Daniel looked at her, his heart shattering. He had always known this day would come, but it didn't make it any easier. "I understand," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll leave tonight." As he turned to go, Olivia grabbed his hand, pulling him back for one last kiss. It was filled with all the love they had never been able to fully express, all the words they had left unsaid. When they finally pulled apart, Olivia whispered, "I'll never forget you." Daniel nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Neither will I." And with that, he walked away, disappearing into the shadows. In the months that followed, Olivia rebuilt her business, reasserting her dominance in the corporate world. The scandal eventually died down, and Richard Caldwell's attempts to take over her company failed. On the outside, it appeared as though Olivia had triumphed once again. But on the inside, she was a different woman. She would often sit in her office late at night, staring out at the city skyline, thinking about Daniel. She had loved him more than anyone else in her life, but she had let him go to protect everything she had worked for. It was a choice she would never regret, but it was one that had cost her dearly. Daniel, for his part, had left the city. He took a job in a small town far from the world of wealth and power, hoping to forget the woman he had loved but could never have. But no matter how far he ran, the memory of Olivia remained with him. He would dream of her sometimes, of the nights they had shared, of the love they had never been able to fully claim. In the end, they were both haunted by the same question: what if things had been different? What if they had dared to defy the world and choose each other, no matter the consequences? It was a question that would never be answered, a love story that had no ending, only a bittersweet memory of what could have been. Conclusion: love without closure. Olivia and Daniel's story was one of love, sacrifice, and heartbreak. Though they never married, and their relationship remained hidden from the world, the bond they shared was one that would stay with them forever. In the end, it was a love that couldn't survive the harsh realities of the world, but it was a love that neither of them would ever forget.